Should we raise all food animals free range or pasture raised? Hi, my name is Carla Garcia, and I'm here with Cassandra Perez and Kara Krostowski. We are Group 7, and we are against raising all food animals free range or pasture raised. I'm going to start off by giving information about the history and background. So what are free-range or pasture-raised animals? Animals that are free-range or pasture-raised do not live in cages and most of the time have the ability to roam outdoors. In the early to mid-20th century, poultry were mostly raised free-range because it was one of the best ways to provide vitamins for humans through food, up until vitamins A and D were founded. Pasture-raised animals were an early way to provide food and also a way to domesticate cows. Pasturing animals used to be a husbandry method. Now, moving further into the background, although free-range and pasture-raised animals are really similar, they also are different in some ways. So, free-range animals are regulated by the USDA. They are cage-free and have access to outdoors, but it is actually really rare for them to be out. And since it is rare for them to be outdoors, this results in these animals not getting exposed to the sun and getting no sunlight. Although these animals are cage-free, they're not guaranteed a lot of space, but this can also vary by farm and the size of the farm. For example, thousands of birds can still be crammed inside a farm with not much space to move. Only 2 square feet of outdoor space are required per bird. For pasture-raised, they're actually not regulated by the USDA, and they actually have more access to be outside. They get about 108 square feet of space per animal, and they can also be crammed up inside a barn, but like I said, they have a lot more space to be outdoors compared to free-range animals. So a free-range hen does not mean it actually stepped foot outside. It just means that they had a way for them to do so. As for pasture-raised, in order for them to be considered pasture-raised, they have to be given a lot of space to roam outdoors. Now moving on to ethical aspects, pasture-raised animals are considered to have a better life since they are able to freely roam the outdoors. They get to do things that they would not usually be able to do in a cage, such as cow grazing, chicken pecking, or having a natural diet. Pasture-raised animals consume lots of grass, bugs, worms, and anything else they can find in the dirt and nature. These animals are considered to be in a more comfortable environment since they are free and can roam the outdoors rather than being in a cage or in a barn all day. Since they freely roam the outdoors, they have a lot of access to be under the sun. Raising animals this way is more humane and natural. A lot of people claim that animals should be outside just as nature intended them to be. I agree that animals should be outside as nature intended them for them to be, but these animals that have access to the outdoors doesn't mean they have quality or the right duration to be outdoors as people think of them to be. So, although raising animals free range or pasture raised seems the best and most humane way to do it, people forget that they are also food animals, which means they will eventually be consumed. People should keep in mind that when they eat something, they are technically eating what the animal, ate too.
Hello, my name is Cassandra Press, and I will be talking about the cultural and sociological importance against raising food animals pasture-raised or and free-range, and also some current events that show negative impacts against this topic. We will begin with sociological importance against raising food animals free-range or pasture-ranged. This one major change is the expenses being put into the new change. There is going to be a significant increase in animal food products like meats and eggs. Meat is already a very expensive product, and during these times, it is already significantly hard for many families to go out and purchase enough nutritional food, and adding more to this expense is not something that they will be looking forward to. They could be putting that extra money to some bills and or other necessities they may need. Another expense that would be of impact is the thousands of dollars that would have to be put into this radical change from going from caged or confined to free range and pasture range. This is due to the fact that this change requires a lot more room for animals, which would affect the farmer directly. This could cause them to have to buy more land or sell some animals to have enough space for the animals according to regulations and to the state. For example, a farmer with laying hens on a small farm may have to get rid of half their hens just to have enough room for them to have, causing them to have lower production numbers, lower sale volumes, and less income. With free-range pasture-raised, you will also have to hire more workers to help run the farm and keep pastures clean and chickens fed properly. Also to check on the food productions of the productions of the hens. This causing you to have to pay more out of your pocket for people to come and work for you. Another sociological importance is the threat this brings with having food animals on pastures. They are more vulnerable to being attacked by predators and more vulnerable to getting and transmitting diseases to and from other species. This could also be a threat to humans, as there is now a bigger risk of salmonella outbreak if not cleaned and ran properly. This can also bring many other diseases from other animals that have infected or have come in contact with the hens or the animal. Next, we have the cultural importance against free range and pasture range. This includes the common way of thought, the old ways. Older generations are often scared of change and don't want to accept this change because it could hurt their business and their income. People have been doing this for years and it has gone very well for them. They may not think they need a change in how they run their businesses. They are more independent and like to run it their way. Newer generations may be learning from these older generations, which could also make it harder for them to adapt to new changes, which could lead to many errors and money loss if not done and handled correctly. This picture on the right-hand side shows how the hens were before. Next, we have current events. We have Proposition 2. This was introduced in 2008 and put into effect in 2015, when there's a 63.5% approval rate from Californians. The map on the upper right-hand side pictures a Californians' approval rate of Prop 2. This proposition proposed that we should have new standards of confinement in which farm food animals should be held. Yet, these animals weren't as confined as people believed they were. This proposition increased egg costs by 76% and lowered egg supply significantly. The increase of egg prices is seen on the image of the lower right corner, which states egg price increase. The price of regular white eggs is increasing due to costs involved with our local farmers having to comply with the Standards of Confining Farm Animals Initiative, CA Prop 2, 2008, which takes effect on January 1st, 2015. This picture was taken in a local grocery store. It also affected and keeps affecting local economies, since they are now having to bring eggs from other places farther away, instead of locally sourcing their egg supply. This proposition also increased the risk of exposure to salmonella and avian flu in hens, if any trace to be transmitted from other states or other farther cities. Next, we have Proposition 12. Proposition 12 is another current event in which is addition to Proposition 2, but with actual measurements added to be enforced. In Proposition 12, It states that a hen has to have no less than 144 square inches of space, 43 feet per calf, and 24 feet per sow, which is approximately a 4 by 6 space. With this proposition came up to a $1,000 fine and up to 6 months in jail time with a misdemeanor charge on record if found that you are not following the regulations. The picture to the right is the Proposition 12 and the regulations like I had mentioned before.
This is Kara Kristofsky. When all is said and done, animals should not be free-range and pasture-raised. There are multiple reasons for this, but the strongest being the cost, the unclear terms of free-range and pasture-range, and the animal's overall safety. When it comes to the cost of livestock, free-range and pasture-raised animals are much more expensive due to the higher need of labor, the higher need of food, and the higher need of protection for the animals from the weather and from outside predators. With this being said, farmers need to spend much more money on maintaining their animals. So, in response, the prices of their byproducts will skyrocket. A carton of free-range eggs, on average, may cost 3 times the amount of one of caged eggs when in similar amounts. Right now, many families cannot afford to pay these higher prices. So, if free-range and pasture-range animals start becoming more popular, then more families will not be able to afford animal byproducts. Another reason that we should not adopt the practice of free-range and pasture-raised animals is that the idea can be very misleading. Many picture cows in fields and hens on farms, but in reality, they may be in small areas with little to no sunlight and far too many animals in their enclosure. Free-range farming is not very regulated by the USDA, so although many believe that free-range eggs that they get from the store came from a happy chicken on a grassy field, it is far more likely it came from a barn, like the picture shown in the bottom right. Going off of this, you Going off of this, as you can see, the animals are very cramped together. This means that the animal safety is not put first. The animals are caged, they are not protected from each other, and they are not protected from outside predators. The mortality rate in range hens has been shown to have rates 20 to 40% higher, primarily due to exposure to each other and not being protected from outside animals. Lastly, animals on free-range farms are more susceptible to diseases because they are spread much faster. Unfortunately, when a disease spreads through a farm of livestock, almost every time the animals will have to be put down and disposed of. This hurts farmers, and it can also seem very unethical, period. In summary, free-range and pasture-raised animals is something that was much easier said than done. Sorry. In the past, free-range and pasture-raised animals may have been a smarter way to have livestock, but with the growing population and the higher demand for food, this practice is quite outdated. Free-range is regulated by the USDA, yet there is still no guarantee that it will be the best quality of life for the livestock. On average, free-range only get about 2 more square feet of space, yet they are rarely ever outdoors because there is no minimum or guaranteed amount of time they have to spend roaming around in the pasture. With this being said, they may even be cramped into smaller places because the place designated for roaming has a very small potential. Although, when done ethically, pasture-raised animals are considered to have a much better quality of life because they are able to partake in natural activities such as grazing, pecking, and the chance to have a natural diet, this is not always the case with pasture-raised animals. This is one of the only strong pros to pasture-raised animals. But, going off of that, when done ethically, pasture farming is much more expensive because it costs much more to raise the animals in a larger area. It means our byproducts will cost more, and in unsure times, like most of the past few years, many families cannot afford to pay for pasture-raised and free-range animal byproducts. This also means that farmers will not be able to produce as much in the past because they won't be able to afford as many animals. Not only this, but free range also means more access to predators and access to diseases that could possibly devastate entire farms. Currently, there are propositions in play that ensure that animals in the livestock business are treated properly. Proposition 2 ensures that animals will have enough room in their enclosure, and Proposition 12 also aids with that. So, in conclusion, when it comes to the question of should we raise all food animals, free range and pasture raised, the best answer when looking at all the evidence is no.